I am not having the best hair day, but that's okay because those things are irrelevant. I'm gonna talk about a book anyway. Hi, my name is Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I like to do book reviews, reading vlogs, mostly book related content. I don't know. That being said, if any of that interests you, please subscribe, and let's just go ahead and talk about the book we're going to talk about today, which is a new release by Frederik Backman called The Winners. So, like I said, we're going to be talking about The Winners by Frederik Backman. If you're new here, again, I'm a big fan of his other books. This is the third book in the Beartown. I guess it's going to be a trilogy now. I don't think there's going to be another book, but it's the third book in the Beartown series. I did do a review on Us Against You, I think is what it's called. It was the second one. So it's Beartown, Us Against You, Us Against Them, Us Against You, and then this third book, The Winners. So this book takes place about 2 years after the events of Beartown, the first book, and it really follows just a lot of the aftermath of that book. And the story follows Maya returning to Beartown for actually the funeral of the woman who owned the bear. Is it called the Bear Paw? I don't remember. So she returns for the funeral of the woman who owned the local pub where like all of the hockey enthusiasts would go drink and stuff like that. And her dad actually knew this woman, Roberta, really, really well. Her dad was formerly the manager of the Beartown hockey team, and these are obviously like hockey-based books. I'm guessing if you're reading this one, you've read the first two. Hopefully you have. So Maya returns for, I think her name is Roberta, Roberta's funeral. Really, it follows just like kind of what happens as she returns to Beartown, her feelings, but it's really not just about Maya. So I don't want to give you that impression or mislead you, because it's very much about all of the characters, and we even get some new characters from Head and everything. Basically, it just deals with a lot of the follow-up of Peter, who's Maya's dad, and his whole like saga as former manager of the club, as well as like his wife Kira, Bobo, all of like the people who are on the Beartown team. I really just liked all of the follow-up to a lot of these characters' stories, especially since some of them didn't get as much attention in the first book as like I would have liked. I found them intriguing. And then of course we get to know more about Benji and his journey and where he ends up. Like I said, it also introduces some new characters, some other girls from Beartown and Head, new Head perspectives, which there's like a family from Head with a mom and a dad and their kids, which I really, really like. It gives it a lot more like depth and balance of perspectives. It's not just a book written from the point of view of Beartown characters, because obviously these are like rival kind of towns. But yeah, I really enjoy that they also introduce some new perspectives of some new characters, and I don't really know exactly how to explain like a synopsis other than it just follows the aftermath of like all of our favorite characters, and I just really don't want to give any spoilers or anything like that. So I think I'm just gonna go right into my review. If you want a better synopsis, like go read one on GOODREADS or on the book website. So it's definitely a very emotionally and character driven book. It really won't make any sense unless you read the first two, and I would highly recommend them because they're really good. There was, like I said, the book in between, Us Against You, I think, which I did review a while back, but I feel like this one is more of a companion piece to the original Beartown book. They really kind of act as bookends of the series, it seems like. So they complement each other really, really well. Brought back a lot of that same vibe, that same energy, a lot of those same characters interacting in similar ways as well. To be honest, I thought that there wouldn't really be that much story left to tell here, but I was wrong. I feel like this still felt like a really complete story. I was pretty immediately hooked, and I think Backman has done it again, and I enjoyed this more than Us Against You, I think. It really brought me back to that first Beartown book in all the best ways, and it's got like a lot of that emotion. It's very heartfelt. Things to appreciate about this book specifically that I really liked are that it is stylistically, as I said, very much similar to the first two books, and has all of that great kind of foreshadowing and fill in the blanks type storytelling that I feel like Backman uses a lot, but he especially employs in these Beartown books. In these Beartown books, there is a lot of foreshadowing, and I think that actually works really well for emotional stories like this because there's so character driven that having those little bits of information to kind of tease you about what happens to the characters keeps the reader invested, keeps the reader extremely interested the entire time. The writing, again, is beautiful, and honestly, just like the first two, it can be kind of poetic at times. Like I said, with all of that foreshadowing and a lot of the just emotionally driven, character driven writing, it is just sometimes so beautiful. There's also just this really incredible imagery of like rural Sweden, like northern Sweden, and it's just, when you're picturing it, you're picturing just these lush forests and this beautiful imagery that makes it very, I feel like it's very stark, and it's a great place to see the story play out. I also like that just in these books in general, but in this one especially, there's a lot of emphasis on women supporting one another, female friendships. The first book as well addresses like toxic masculinity. I know it's such like a buzzword phrase that I really feel like can be overused, but I appreciate the way that he explores it, not being so in your face. It's very much, he explores how we raise men and boys and how that can be harmful, not just for women, but also for those men and boys themselves. Yeah, it's just really quite nice that he does this, and to be honest, it doesn't feel, like I said, like it's being shoved down our throats. The commentary feels quite natural and quite subtle, and like it's not trying to paint people as all bad or all good, which I really appreciate, because you have to be a little bit more nuanced when you're addressing these topics, especially in like fiction, literature. I appreciate that it's a little bit more subtle and nuanced, and I think that that's just a more effective way to open up conversations about these topics. Toxic upbringing, toxic parenting, all of that is like woven as a thread throughout all of these books. I think there's a huge emphasis on parenting as well, kind of going back to like not just how we raise boys and men, but how we raise girls. This book addresses it a lot more as well. And just parenting in general, parent-child relationships, kind of stand-in parent-child relationships. Other topics that I feel like are really present in it are just obviously small towns that feel like they've been left behind, feel like they've been forgotten. This is something that people kind of talk about in passing, but it seems like nobody seems to have really great solutions for it, or nobody maybe feels comfortable enough talking about it for long periods of time. I feel like there's a lot of rhetoric in the US definitely as well of like, oh, okay, like if there's no opportunity in the small town, then just leave. But not everybody has the opportunity or the desire to leave maybe their small towns. So I feel like there's a lot of it feeling left behind, and you hear that in the commentary from a lot of the Beartown and head characters, where they're like, the politicians don't care about us, the politicians don't care about us. And honestly, they're right. Like nobody's really doing a lot to make sure that a lot of these towns that are being left behind, their industries drying up, like nobody's really taking care of them or even really thinking about them. So I like that that's something that's also addressed pretty heavily in these books, and it's often addressed from the point of view of the people that live in these places. There's also definitely a commentary on violence and modern culture. Like I said, this takes place in Sweden, not in the US, so it's a different type of culture, but still, I really like that that's kind of explored, and it's not necessarily really addressed negatively or positively per se. It's just a theme that is explored. It's just woven into the story. So particularly from the point of view of a town with like a strong hunting culture, I like it. I like that it's addressing that, and I like that it's addressing it as just part of the story, not necessarily positive or negative. They're definitely represented in both positive and negative lights, not just in this book, but in all of the books. They're represented as something that can be healing, that can be sustenance, that can be like for hunting. And then they're also represented as something that can be obviously a, and I really appreciate that the kind of, I guess, gray area is represented, that it's not black or white, like they're good or bad. I don't know. I just like that it's addressed. I like that it's woven into the story, and I like that it's not black and white, because nothing really ever is. Some of the storylines though in this book, I mean, like I said, I'm not going to give away any spoilers because it's brand new, but Amat's storyline was such a roller coaster to read. It was so hard to read at points, but then like so realistic in so many ways. I don't know, I really want to like shout out to his storyline. If you're reading this or if you have read it, like that was the one that really stuck with me. Another character I love is Bobo. Bobo has had such a journey. Like Bobo's journey and character arc in these books, especially for a little bit more of like a secondary or tertiary character, he has had such an interesting journey. Yeah, I really like to read about like what's happening with this character. He's been through, you know, some stuff and he's had some growth, and I really liked his character and what was happening. I know Benji, everybody loves Benji. I feel like Benji's the fan favorite. Sweet Benji. We were warned already that his story just wasn't one that was gonna end like we wanted it to. Like, we all want the fairy tale ending for Benji, but the fairy tale ending for Benji is not what's in the cards for him. We're warned time and time again by Backman in the other books. It's just, it didn't make reading it any easier, but I mean, what else would we expect from Benji, honestly? Like, such a dark character, but also like a bright light of a character. It's so hard to explain. If you know, you know. A highlight of these books, I think, which are already great books, but he is fan favorite for a reason, I think. And I have not watched the HBO adaptation of the first book, but I'm kind of interested in watching that. The only thing that honestly I have such huge reservations about is that I feel like you cannot do Benji justice. You cannot find somebody who can be him on the screen. Like, there's just no way. I think I'm still gonna watch it this winter just out of curiosity, but there's no way that they can do him justice. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think all of the character arcs are really great. I love where everything went in this book, and I really was actually interested and invested in the newer characters that were introduced. And yeah, I love the perspective too of like Beartown being more of like the winning town, and then Head being the town that's more like down on its luck at the moment, because obviously those roles were reversed just a few years ago in this story. So I think it's really interesting to see how people react to basically that inversion of events. I don't want to say a lot more because, like I said, I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, 5 stars. It was another great Backman read. It actually did do the story justice. It actually complemented the other books. If you've read the other 2, I highly recommend reading this. If you have not read the other 2, go read them and then read this. I think that's gonna be it for this review, but like, mind blown, the ending, all of it. I mean, just there was so much good stuff and like emotional stuff and like complicated stuff going on in this book. I don't even know what else to say. I think that's gonna be it for this review. Leave a comment below if you've read this book or if you want to read this book, and yeah, I would love to discuss it a little bit more. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. That's gonna be it. Like, subscribe if you like this video, all that stuff, and I will see you later.